All right, well, welcome to the Story of Scripture Week 4. We're going to finish up our February reading. So we read Leviticus 23 through number 6 in the Old Testament, and in the New Testament, we worked through Mark 3 into Mark 6. In our Old Testament reading, the thing that I want to kind of just focus on today is this concept of the Sabbath year and the year of Jubilee. This is found in number 6, 22 through 27. I'm going to actually go ahead and jump over there in my Bible. Now, if you guys haven't already, I am using the Christian Standard Bible. It's my kind of preferred Bible translation over the last couple of years, and I've really enjoyed it. And so there is a coupon code TTT40 that you can get 40% off on all of the Christian Standard Bibles. You just go to Lifeway to their Bible section for the Christian Standard Bible, and you can use it on literally any of the Bibles and any of the study Bibles. In fact, I think you can use it on any Bible in general that is on the Lifeway site. And so I'm turning to Numbers 6. So here we are in Leviticus. You get to Numbers, let me get over there. Number 6. So this is the blessing, the priestly blessing. But actually before that, I was kidding. We're not going to start in number 6. We're going to actually start back in Leviticus. And let's get to the Sabbath year and Jubilee. This is one of those concepts in the Old Testament that's actually kind of important because as we're reading about the people of Israel, we're consistently being reminded that Israel, once again, is supposed to be separate and set apart from the other nations of the world. There has to be something unique about Israel that causes the nations, one, to maybe be shocked a little bit about their own practices, but then also to marvel at the practices of Israel. Just as a side note, the Bible was intentionally written in a specific cultural, historical, and social framework. There are sometimes accusations against the Bible or accusations against God, which I'm actually empathetic to. I understand. That says, well, how can God allow polygamy? How can God allow slaves? How can God allow this kind of evil? Why doesn't he just flat out deal with it? Well, one, God has given humanity agency. We're not robots that are forced to do anything and everything. There is human agency. We're a part of a family. And as part of the family, love is a choice. And so God offers up that choice. This means that sin is serious. And sin corrupts the ideal of Eden, the ideal of how God would intend for you and I to live in our human-to-human relationships. And I think there's a bigger principle at play. Easily, God could have been like, don't do this and don't do that. But I don't know about you, but if you have kids and you just like start telling them like, don't do all these things and equally, it's like you just say, don't do. What are the kids going to do? They're just going to do it, right? If the one thing you tell them not to do isn't going to work, then why would they listen to any of the other ones? And it feels like that same kind of father to child situation is happening with the people of Israel. God prioritizes like the core root issues. He does not want the people of Israel to follow after the gods of the nations because it's going to throw an upheaval into everything about the way that they live and about their public witness. Hey, Humble Theology fam, it's kind of wild, but I wrote my very first book and it released earlier this year. It's called The Hidden Peace. Here it is right here. Finding true security, strength, and confidence through humility. Really what I wanted to do was write a book that was accessible for the everyday average Bible reader, but gave you some sound biblical theology on the ancient virtue of humility, which was in fact the very virtue that sustained and helped the first century church to thrive and flourish. And this was all based around Philippians 2, 8, and 9, the idea that Jesus himself really exampled for us and modeled for us divine humility. And so the book is available right now. If you've ever felt anxious, if you are worried about what other people feel or look about you, I mean, if you've had any type of insecurities really at all in your life and it has robbed you of peace, the secret to the peace that you've been longing for is this ancient virtue that has for far too long been neglected, the virtue of humility. The Hidden Peace is available on Amazon and all the major book retailers where you would normally get it. You can also get a copy from Proverbs 31 Ministries, the P31 bookstore, which is where I serve as Director of Theology. And I'll have a link in the show notes for you as well. I pray that this book would be an encouragement for you as you grow and you learn how to cultivate the soil of humility, which is in fact the soil in which all the fruit of the Spirit of Galatians 5 flow from. Blessings to you, friends. And there is a sense of accommodation in that God is going to work in the midst of things that are absolutely not ideal. Slavery, polygamy, all these types of things. But what God does is so strategic. He is consistently reminding us that while we're playing checkers, he's playing chess. In fact, he created both games. And what he wants to do is he wants to suffocate the oxygen of sin out of the environment, right? And so in order to deal with this, he's got to deal with the hearts of the people. Because wicked hearts will always figure out new, wicked, creative ways to do evil. And so if you want to crush evil, you deal with the heart. And this is what Yahweh is doing. One of the things that he does is he implements for the people of Israel this concept called the year of Jubilee, the Sabbath year. And it is honestly debated, Old Testament scholars debate, whether or not the people of Israel ever followed this. But regardless of if they followed this or not, you can't get around with this was something they were supposed to follow. And so what are they supposed to be doing? They are supposed to, regardless of the debt, regardless of the prosperity, there is a reset that is supposed to take place. So if you were forced to go into indentured servanthood, or if you were forced to sell your kind of familial lands because of a famine or whatever else had happened, there was a moment in time in history where you would know that things would reset back to their proper allotment. And the reason why this is so important is because it shows us that God cares about the systemic injustice that is present inside of the world. That there are systems and structures that humanity creates in order to perpetuate those that prosper, continue to prosper, and those that are poor and powerless continually stay in that place of powerlessness. But that kind of ethic, that kind of living has no place in the kingdom of God. And so you have the year of Jubilee. As we get into number 6, I love this blessing. This is one of those things that I kind of just refer to and I say often. If I were to do a wedding, this is one of the blessings I would pray at a wedding. It's the priestly blessing, and this is what the text says, starting in verse 22, number 6:22. The Lord spoke to Moses, "Tell Aaron and his sons, this is how you are to bless the Israelites. You should say to them, may the Lord bless you and protect you. May the Lord make his face shine on you, and may he be gracious to you. May the Lord look with favor on you and give you peace. In this way, they will pronounce my name over the Israelites, and I will bless them." And I actually think it's in that last kind of verse 27, that the name of God would be pronounced over the people of God, which is something that we ought to really think about, that as we are faithful children of God, we bear and we represent his name. And his name is a blessing. His name is a protection. His name is a grace for those of us that are so desperate in need of grace. And who are those of us that are so desperately in need of grace? All of us, every single one of us. As we get into the New Testament, into Mark, we get Mark chapters 3-6. Let me just kind of give a general introduction to the Gospel of Mark as you kind of work into this. I mentioned last week that we start with the Gospel of John. You go right into the temptation of Jesus, and then you kind of right off the bat deal with unclean spirits and demons. One of the things that Jesus does that no other prophet or figure in the Old Testament does that is unique to Jesus If you want to fact check me, I think Dr. Michael Heiser has a great section on this in the Unseen Realm. But it's demon exorcism. And so when Jesus comes on the scene and he deals with these unclean demons, he is doing something that is significant and profound. It is all-out war. It is all-out war on the enemy, all-out war on the demonic realm, all-out war. And Jesus is literally cutting off the heads of these demons. And if you just look at the situation, you'll notice, like, if we went a little bit earlier, you've got Mark 1, driving out an unclean spirit, which, by the way, that phrase unclean spirit, it held weight in the Second Temple period. They were thinking about a specific type of malevolent spiritual being, and they were thinking about the disembodied spirits of the Nephilim that were unclean. What makes something unclean? An unholy mixture. Well, what are the Nephilim? The unholy mixture of something that was divine, that was never supposed to cohabitate with an earthly human. And so you've got the sons of God, the angelic beings who mate with human women and produce this unholy being. And so when that physical body dies of the Nephilim, the giants, the spirit has nowhere to go. Human spirits have a place to go, and fallen angels even have a holding place with Tartarus in a future that is going to happen in judgment, Psalm 82 says. But where do the disembodied spirits of the Nephilim go? They get stuck on earth. They're to wander. I think eventually some of them actually go mad because of the situation, but they're consistently eyewitnesses to the coming Messiah, to the promise of the anointed one who would come. And this is exactly why, verse 22, just then a man with an unclean spirit, that's that phrase, how you know that we're talking not about the Shadim sons of God, but we're talking about the spirits of the Nephilim, that just then a man with an unclean spirit was in their synagogue. He cried out and he says to Jesus, "What do you have to do with us?" And notice the specificity. He calls him out, "Jesus of Nazareth. Have you come to destroy us? I know who you are, the Holy One of God." And just a side note, this lets us know something very important, that the demons know who God is. The demons know who Jesus is. The question is, do you? Do I? Do we truly know who Jesus is? Not on our terms, but on his terms. Hey, Humble Theology fam, I'm so excited to share with you my first solo Bible study, Finding Peace Through Humility, a Bible study through the book of Judges. Now, the whole idea of the book of Judges is that the people of God are spiraling kind of out of control. And the question we have is it possible for them to actually come out of the spiral? And it is. And kind of what I present throughout this Bible study is that the thing that's hiding in plain sight, that God is just consistently trying to draw the people of Israel back then and his people today to, is the ancient virtue of humility. The gift of humility is the gift of self-awareness, so that we can know who God is, we can know who we are, and so that we are powerfully equipped to know other people. And so I'm really excited about this Bible study. There are video lessons that go with it, and of course this Bible study guide as well. You can get Finding Peace Through Humility on Amazon, wherever Bible studies are sold, and then I'll also put a link for it as well in the show notes. Blessings to you, friends. And then later on, it says that, if a kingdom is divided against itself, the kingdom cannot stand. This is chapter 3, verse 24. If a house is divided against itself, that house cannot stand. And if Satan opposes himself and is divided, he cannot stand, but it is finished. But no one can enter a strong man's house and plunder his possessions unless he first ties up the strong man, and then he can plunder his house. Well, who's the strong man? The strong man is Satan and his evil, malevolent beings. What does Jesus do in exorcisms? He ties them up and he puts them essentially in prison, in bondage. Why? So he can steal the plunder. Who are the plunder? The plunder are the people of the nations. As you continue to work through Mark, one of the things that you'll notice that's a unique kind of factor to the Gospel of Mark is immediacy. Just circle, highlight how many times Mark's just like, immediately. It kind of jokes, and I'm like, man, Mark has got some serious ADHD. But I think what's actually happening is Mark is giving us these highlight snapshot reels. Why? So he can get us to the crucifixion. I hope you enjoyed this week's reading, and we start back next week, and we will be in our March reading. See y'all next time.